So you can get one of the best armor sets as well as weapons from quite early on in Fallen Dynasty, including ones that carried me all the way to level 100. The game features a wide selection of really awesome gear sets, which is why in today's video we'll focus on the ones that I found to be the strongest early to mid game. As always, a thumbs up on this video would help a ton, and let's jump right in. Now, one of the first awesome sets you can get right away early on is the General of Man armor as well as the Great Club of Polaris, both of which you actually get from the final boss in the Village of Calamity, and you should already see a few of the pieces in your inventory if you defeated that encounter the first time. A quick tip to finish the second phase much faster is to cast your summon when that becomes available using triangle and circle, which is going to immediately end the fight and give you the items. But you can obviously repeat this level as many times as you want even later, and I definitely recommend doing so until you get the 4-star variants of the armor and weapon. Now, the armor comes with a few benefits early on, with the most important being the set bonus called the Yellow Heaven Must Rise. Having all 5 out of 5 pieces, including the Polaris Club, means getting quite a few nice buffs to spirit gain and damage, but you also get the Berserker Might if you have at least 4 of the pieces equipped. This will give you a nice damage buff upon deflecting enemy attacks, but also increases the damage you take from them, so you do have to be careful with that. Luckily, the armor has a few ways to compensate for this, which includes, of course, a pretty good all-around resistance to 3 of the 5 elements, such as wood, fire, and earth. Also a solid defense rating, given the fact that this is a very light armor set, which means that you also get an A rating into agility. So what this means is that you can now have martial arts that cost way less spirit, plus it also becomes easier to deflect and dodge against enemy attacks. Now, the Polaris Club is pretty decent, I would say. Of course, there's a heavy emphasis in this game on faster weapons, but what you need to know about this is that it also comes with the Boulder Glider, which lets you do kind of like the same attack as the boss did in his first stage, giving you a pretty decent mid-ranged AoE damage that can also reduce enemy spirit and also destroy enemy parts, so you can more easily stun them. I also recommend using triangle during running, so you can do a sprint spirit attack, since it tends to have a much longer range than the normal attack. Eventually, it even gets a decent A- scaling into Earth Virtue at just +5, which is a stat that works really well early on anyway, so it's kind of like a win-win situation. But one of the best weapons by far in the entire game that carried me all the way to level 120 plus has to be the Chivalrous Dual Swords. This can drop super early and comes with one of the best and fastest attack animations in Fallen Dynasty. There are a few ways to get this more reliably, one of which is going to be the guaranteed drop that you get upon finishing the Demon Fort of the Yellow Heaven during Chapter 2. Another one is by going to Zuo-Chi once you unlock the Hidden Village and buy the Accolade reward version of it. By default, the highest and most expensive one gives you a 3-star with a pretty decent chance of it becoming a 4-star instead. And since you tend to get accolades all the time by defeating enemies and completing stuff, you should have at least a few thousands to spare and hopefully get one. That being said, you'll want to make sure that no matter what happens, at least one of the martial arts skills on it is the Beckoning Pine. This is basically that spin attack that you constantly see me doing all the time, and to be honest, it's gotten me out of tough situations so many times I cannot count. One, it's because it has a dodge baked right into it, so the initial charge is actually a slide to the side that can completely evade enemy attacks. And then the following spin deals serious damage to both enemy HP bars and even more so to their spirit, meaning that this is one of the best tools to both stun enemies faster and also apply status effects. It initially scales with Water Virtue a little bit better, unfortunately, which kind of forces you to adopt playing with ice imbues and ice attacks, but starting at +8, it actually gets an A- into fire as well. Even more so, what's unique about it is that it always comes with a light equip damage bonus, which makes it a perfect combination with the General of Man armor that already comes in super light and gives you an A rating into agility, so you do get some bonuses from that as well. But starting with Chapter 2, you'll now get access to companions, which you actually can bring in most fights with you if you recruit them at any major flag. And I definitely recommend you doing so, because not only do they help a ton in combat, but if you defeat more enemies together, you'll get more standing with them. Once you do reach level 10 and become sworn brothers with them, they'll send you their own armors, weapons, and even trinkets, all guaranteed to always be 4-star rating. You can actually get all the info about this under their name in the recruitment page, and honestly, this was the most reliable way in getting 4-star gear in the entire game early on. Probably the best companion for that is likely Cao Cao, at least I think that's how you pronounce the game, as he gives you the Unscrupulous hero set. This is probably the best armor out of all of the ones that I tried early on and even much later, and not just that, it comes with 6 items in total. This includes 4 from the armor set, 1 Heaven's Reliance sword, and a 4-star rating trinket. What makes it so great is the special passive you get from the set bonus called Hero Beyond the Ages. So at the 2 pieces stage, you get a buff that will mark all the flags on the minimap for you, including the larger and the smaller ones. This will make exploration a lot easier, since now you can get all these hints where the nearby hidden areas are located, plus the extra morale boost from getting all the flags. Most important though is the 3 and the 6 set bonus, which gives you a slow debuff and a spirit vulnerability debuff whenever you perform martial arts against enemies. These always apply even on the slightest martial arts hit, and will do an excellent job at slowing enemy movement speed and increasing how fast you can deplete their spirit gauge. And not only that, it also comes with some of the highest defense rating of all the early on armor sets, which means you can pretty much face tank most if not all of the bosses as long as you do just a few upgrades for the armor. Yes, it will require quite a bit into the earth virtue so you can avoid fat rolling, but it's totally worth it, and I mean that damage reduction is simply amazing. By the way, quick tip, if you want even more high star rating trinkets, you should always pay attention to the smaller pandas that you find randomly during missions, or the ones that you can find in the hidden village. You can feed them any item that you don't need from your inventory, and they'll spit out a trinket of the same star rating or quality. So for example, I did a few tests, and if I went ahead and threw a 4-star rating gear that I didn't need on the ground, they would eat that but spit out back a 4-star equivalent trinket instead. I even tried it out with 5-star rating loot, and yes, they did give me back a 5-star rating trinket every single time. These will all be random, by the way, so you cannot control the outcome, but it is worth it if you were unlucky enough and didn't get any good enough trinkets just yet. Finally, an even greater armor set you can actually test from early on, which also includes a very powerful weapon, is the armor of Boldness, which also comes with the Unparalleted spear that you get from Zhao Yun. Again, if I pronounce that wrong, let me know down below in the comments. But the spear especially is the highlight, as it comes with the Whistling Vortex special move on it, which is absolutely crazy. This is a long range kind of spin that you can do to completely shred enemies, and it also covers a really long distance. Spears in general are great weapons in this game for their good poking distance, great and relatively fast movement, but this one is by far the most nimble that I personally found so far. Now this set bonus is also pretty good actually. It's called the Dauntless Warrior, and outside of the extra spear damage, morale point gains, and the spirit consumption, it also gives you the power gain upon deflection. Unlike the General of Men armor, this one has no downsides or debuffs to increase the damage that you yourself get from enemies. It just gives you that pure damage buff upon deflection. Plus, it's a decent compromise between weight and armor rating, giving you quite a bit of protection without becoming too heavy. Of course, many more guides and videos coming up for Fallen Dynasty on the channel, so if you want to stay tuned with all of that, make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe, and activate that notification bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.